It's a historic first. North Korean leader Kim Jong-un and South Korean President are meeting at the border truce village of Panmunjom in the demilitarized zone. The two leaders shook hands and walked a red carpet. Kim Jong-un has also left the peace house in these latest visuals. The delegation-level talks were held at the peace house where the two leaders discussed several issues, including North Korea's nuclear weapons program. Kim Jong-un is the first North Korean leader to set foot in South Korea since the 1950 Korean War, which ended with an armistice in 1953. The two countries are technically still at war. Before the formal talks, Kim Jong and Moon Jae-in held a closed-door meeting at the peace house. There have been reactions from across the world, and coming in, UN Chief Antonio Guterres spoke in support of the talks, expressing the hope of a resolution to long-pending issues, including the denuclearization of North Korea. The Japanese government too has spoken in praise of South Korea for hosting the talks. The historic meet between Kim Jong-un and Moon Jae-in comes following a series of back-channel talks between North and South Korean officials. The North Korean side is a 9-member delegation and includes Kim Jong-un's sister, Kim Yo-jong. After the official welcoming ceremony, both countries' delegations will meet at the peace house. If there is an agreement after the talks, which South Korea believes there will be, it will be announced in the evening Indian Standard Time. Security is extremely tight at the inter-Korea border because of that high-profile meeting, which has come after more than a decade. About 2,800 journalists have registered at the main press center for the summit. This is for the first time that the two Koreas are holding talks in more than a decade. Relations between the two countries have been frosty since the Korean War. The Inter-Korea summit is also expected to set the stage for a meeting between US President Donald Trump and North Korean leader Kim Jong-un, either in May or in June. The White House has issued a statement on the summit expressing the hope that talks will achieve progress towards a future of peace and prosperity for the entire peninsula. These are pictures, in fact, of Kim Jong-un leaving the peace house on the demilitarized zone in Panmunjom village. After talks, he held one-on-one talks with his South Korean counterpart. They also made opening remarks that were broadcast across the world before they retreated to have talks without any cameras. Kim Jong-un seen leaving the peace house there after that meeting. And South Korea's President Moon Jae-in, in fact, initially greeted Kim Jong-un at the military demarcation line, the DML as it's called. This makes Kim Jong-un the first North Korean leader to set foot in the South since the 1950 Korean War. These 11 people that you can see surrounding Kim Jong-un's car as he leaves are from the North Korean Guard, and they traveled with Kim Jong-un. Ramesh Ramchandran now joining us live for more on that. Ramesh, as you pointed out last time, these talks are extremely high on both optics and so far on octane as well.
Indeed, Amitabh, and as you correctly mentioned, in the last units we saw Kim Jong-un drive back to North Korea for a lunch break and a resting period, after which he will return for further discussions inside South Korean territory in the peace house in Panmunjom, and we can expect a joint statement possibly towards the end of those talks. But soon thereafter he'll be joining Moon Jae-in to plant a sapling of a tree which was germinated in, we are told, in 1953, and it will be planted inside South Korean territory near the peace house in Panmunjom, using soil collected from both North Korea and South Korea and water from the rivers of both North Korea and South Korea, and it will be called a sapling or planting for peace and prosperity. So that's the next big item on the itinerary, so to speak, after the lunch break gets over and the two leaders meet again for resumption of the talks. But that said, Kim Jong-un spent nearly 2.5 hours this morning, Amitabh, inside South Korea, and this was only his second visit abroad since taking over as the North Korean leader in 2011. Remember, he traveled to Beijing last month, and in less than 1 month's time, he has traveled abroad again, this time to South Korea, by physically, literally crossing the military demarcation line on foot to enter South Korean territory for talks with Moon Jae-in. And as you mentioned, we saw those dramatic visuals of Kim Jong-un shaking hands with Moon Jae-in and having a conversation before the ceremonial guard of honor and the welcome ceremony, and before they met for a private discussion, a restricted meeting, followed by delegation-level talks in private, not in front of the cameras as was otherwise speculated.
Right, Ramesh, stay with us. Let's just lead our viewers who've just joined us early morning Indian Standard Time to what has happened so far. South Korean President Moon Jae-in initially greeted Kim Jong-un at the MDL, the military demarcation line, and that's made Kim the first North Korean leader to set foot in South Korea since the Korean War. In an unplanned move, Kim Jong-un also invited the South Korean leader to step briefly across the DML, the demarcation line, into North Korea before both leaders crossed back into South Korea, holding hands. After stepping into South Korea, the North Korean leader signed the visitor's book with a message, "A new history begins now." Kim Jong-un, who received the red carpet welcome, hoped that Moon would in fact enjoy North Korea's famous cold noodles that he had brought from his favorite restaurant in Pyongyang. The South Korean President Moon Jae-in said the two leaders have all day to talk and must make up for the last 11 years. The two Koreas last held formal talks in 2007, while Kim Jong-un told his South Korean counterpart Moon Jae-in that he doesn't want a repeat of the past where the countries were unable to fulfill previous agreements. Kim Jong-un also said the two countries should hold talks often to resolve their differences. The North Korean leader hoped that frank talks will lead to a good outcome, saying, "We should have a positive meeting, and going forward we should be determined. If we can get our heads together, then the 11 years lost can be made up, and if we can open our hearts to speak, and if we can draw positive results from this meeting, that would be good. And instead of going to the drawing board, we should move forward." Ramesh, we do believe that the meeting lasted over 1.5 hours, maybe around 100 minutes or so, but all the optics and octane, what they've had to say in their opening remarks, seem to suggest that there will be some kind of a positive statement when they make that one.
Indeed, Amitabh, as far as optics goes, both leaders made an effort to convey the right impression, the message to people who are watching these developments very, very closely, including those countries in the region and beyond, namely the US, Japan and China, and also India to a large extent, Amitabh, because India is heavily invested in the affairs of the Indo-Pacific, and anything happening on the Korean Peninsula will have a direct impact or bearing on India's national security and economic development. So clearly, India is as much interested in Korean affairs and these inter-Korean talks as much as any other country. But that said, yes, insofar as the body language or personal chemistry or bonhomie between Kim Jong-un and Moon Jae-in goes, well, it was there for all to see. As far as the camera and the photo opportunities go, they made an effort to be comfortable in each other's presence. But the million-dollar question is, can these two men get along going forward, especially given the widening chasm or the rift between their respective positions on the issue of nuclear weapons? And that is one issue which South Korea insists is high on their agenda or their priority. But Kim Jong-un says he will only commit himself so far to suspending all future nuclear and missile tests. So that's where the differences lie at the moment. The joint statement will make it more explicitly clear where those differences have, whether those differences have been bridged or not. But as things stand today, as far as the photo opportunities and the smiles go, things look positive and headed in that direction. But we have to wait and watch for the joint statement towards the end of their day-long summit here. Amitabh?
Joint statement being closely watched around the world, Ramesh, and I believe there are about 3,000 journalists in that press center with you as well. So while we wait for that joint statement, which we could expect to have something significant, there was a bit of humor as well with Kim Jong-un referring to the cold noodles that he had brought from his favorite restaurant, which they'll both have apart from so many other things, including duck and fish for dinner.
Indeed, the menu is a carefully chosen one, actually, Amitabh, and to give you a flavor of what's on the menu, what's on the table, well, both sides have made an attempt to present each other's dishes to the guests, both Moon Jae-in and Kim Jong-un. Moon Jae-in making an effort to have his favorite dish, fish, and also dishes from his predecessors' hometowns, Kim Dae-jong and Roh Moo-yoon, and also Swiss rosti for Kim Jong-un, because remember, he studied in Switzerland and is used to having continental food as well. But that said, just to give you a flavor of where I am and what's happening around me, Amitabh, I am in the media center on the outskirts of Seoul. As you mentioned, there are at least about 3,000 journalists stationed here, all glued to their big giant screens here, video walls, catching every glimpse of the two leaders as they met early this morning and the talks that happened afterwards. And all eyes are on the joint statement that will be issued towards the end of the third Inter-Korean summit. And they hope, the South Korean media especially, that this will set the stage for a good talks between Donald Trump and Kim Jong-un going forward. So as things stand today, it's a sense of anticipation here, Amitabh, really, about what to expect from the Kim Jong-un, Moon Jae-in talks that are still happening as we speak.